Supreme happiness of the Buddha. The Buddha asserted that he had realized a happiness surpassing the happiness of a great monarch, whose happiness is considered by most ordinary people as being supreme. On one occasion, the Buddha met with members of the Niganta order who were practicing various forms of asceticism and self-mortification, and he spoke with them about the religious practices they undertook for reaching their desired goal. The Niganta followers practiced severe austerities because they believed that happiness cannot be achieved by way of happiness. It can only be achieved by way of pain. In order to support this belief, they compared King Bimbisara with the Buddha, saying that if one were able to achieve supreme happiness, the highest goal of religious practice, by way of pleasure, then King Bimbisara would surely have attained this achievement, since his happiness and comfort exceeds that of the Buddha. The Niganta said this because they held the common belief that, since King Bimbisara possesses lavish wealth and great power, his ease and comfort must be greater than the Buddha's, who had relinquished his worldly possessions, wandering about in remote mountains and forests, and observing various religious practices. Surely the Buddha suffered similar pain and difficulty as the Niganta themselves. The Buddha, however, rejected their claim and proved their premise false by saying that King Bimbisara does not have more happiness than the Buddha. On the contrary, the Buddha experiences greater happiness than the king. From the perspective of ordinary people, it was difficult to judge whether the Buddha had more happiness than King Bimbisara, because most people, including the Niganta in this story, take as a measurement abundance at the external level. For example, the amount of one's wealth, power, prestige, personal retinue, etc., all of which the Buddha had relinquished. In fact, it is impossible to use such external things as a gauge for someone's true internal happiness, and therefore the Buddha did not submit these things as proof. Indeed, measuring a person's internal happiness, which is invisible, is difficult to do. The Buddha thus used other criteria, which are clearly discernible to others, as a decisive way to determine a person's internal happiness. He did this by asking whether King Bimbisara would be able to sit still for 7 days, or even 1 day, without moving or speaking, and experiencing uninterrupted happiness. The answer was no. The Buddha went on to say that he himself was able to sit still and experience such uninterrupted happiness for 2, 3, even 7 days. The Niganta thus conceded that the Buddha has more happiness than King Bimbisara. The Buddha compared the pleasure derived from the 5 sense objects to a fire made from straw and twigs. Although it is bright, it is not resplendent, because it is clouded by smoke. The happiness and bliss independent of material sense objects and free from unwholesome states, on the other hand, is like a fire burning without using grass and twigs as fuel. Its light is pure and bright, devoid of any stain.